For 30 years, Graceland's piano tuner saw something no one else did. Handwritten notes Elvis hid inside his piano. They weren't songs. They were fears, prayers, and confessions. The tuner never told anyone. 20 years after Elvis died, he finally sent them to Lisa Marie with a letter that changed everything. It was April 1967, and Martin Fitzgerald had just been hired as Graceland's piano tuner. At 62 years old, Martin had been tuning pianos for 40 years, in concert halls, recording studios, wealthy homes across Memphis. But this was different. This was Elvis Presley's piano. The grand piano sat in Graceland's music room, and Martin approached it with the reverence it deserved. Elvis was at the peak of his fame, and this instrument had been played on countless recordings. As Martin opened the piano to access the strings and hammers, he noticed something unusual. Tucked between the soundboard and the frame, folded into a small square, was a piece of paper. Martin carefully extracted it, thinking it might be a note about tuning preferences or technical specifications. But when he unfolded it, he saw handwriting. Personal, rushed, emotional. The note read, "I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm afraid people will realize I'm just a kid from Tupelo who got lucky. What if tomorrow they all wake up and see I'm a fraud? God help me be worthy of what I've been given." It was dated March 1967, just a month earlier. This was Elvis's private confession, hidden where no one would find it. Martin's hands trembled as he carefully refolded the note and placed it back exactly where he'd found it. This wasn't his to read. This wasn't his to share. But he couldn't forget it. Over the next 30 years, through hundreds of tuning sessions at Graceland, Martin would discover dozens more notes hidden throughout the piano. Each one a glimpse into Elvis's private world, the fears and doubts and hopes that the king of rock and roll couldn't share with anyone else. The notes appeared irregularly. Sometimes Martin would find 3 or 4 during a single tuning session. Other times, months would pass without any new ones. Martin developed a protocol. He would carefully remove each note, read it only once, and immediately put it back. He never mentioned them to Elvis, never to the staff, never to anyone. These were sacred secrets. The notes varied in tone and content. Some were prayers. "Dear God, please keep Mama safe in heaven. Let her know I'm trying to make her proud. Let her know I haven't forgotten where I came from." Some were confessions of loneliness. "Everyone wants something from me. I'm surrounded by people, but I've never felt more alone. Who am I when no one's watching? Do I even exist without the audience?" Some were fears about his career. "The music is changing. Kids don't want what I'm doing anymore. What happens when they stop caring? Who am I if I'm not Elvis Presley, the star?" Some were reflections on fame. "I can't go to a grocery store. I can't take a walk. I'm a prisoner in my own life. I asked for this. I wanted this. But nobody told me the cost." And some were heartbreakingly vulnerable. "I took too many pills again tonight. I know I need to stop, but I can't sleep without them, and I can't perform without being awake, and I can't be alone with my thoughts. This is killing me, and I don't know how to stop." Martin read each note with a heavy heart. The Elvis Presley the world knew, confident, charismatic, powerful, was hiding this fragile, frightened person inside the piano. After Elvis died in August 1977, Martin continued servicing the piano at Graceland for the estate. He found no new notes, of course, but the old ones remained, hidden in their secret places throughout the instrument. Martin struggled with what to do. These notes represented the most private thoughts of a man who'd had almost no privacy in life. Did he have the right to share them? Even with Elvis gone, did these confessions belong to anyone but Elvis? For years, Martin said nothing. He retired from piano tuning in 1985, but the secret weighed on him. He'd been the keeper of Elvis's hidden self, and only he knew this side of the man. In 1997, 20 years after Elvis's death, Martin was diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer. Doctors gave him less than a year to live. Martin was 72 years old and had no children. His wife had died 5 years earlier. He had no one to tell his stories to, no one to pass his memories to, but he had the secret, and he realized that secret needed to find its way home. Martin spent weeks carefully transcribing every note he could remember. He'd read each one only once, decades ago, but the words had burned into his memory. The pain in them, the vulnerability, the humanity. He couldn't remember them all word for word, but he remembered the essence, the fears Elvis had written about, the prayers, the confessions. Martin wrote a letter to Lisa Marie Presley. In it, he explained who he was, his 30 years tuning Graceland's piano, and what he'd discovered hidden inside it. "Miss Presley," Martin wrote, "your father was one of the most famous men in the world, but I believe very few people knew him as a person. The notes I found suggest he felt that isolation deeply. He was Elvis Presley, the icon, but who was there to see Elvis Presley, the man?" Martin included his transcriptions of the notes he remembered, being careful to note which ones he could recall verbatim and which ones he was paraphrasing from memory. "I kept your father's secret for 30 years, Martin continued in his letter. "I never told anyone, not my wife, not my friends. These notes were his private sanctuary, and I didn't have the right to violate that while he lived. But now, with both your father and myself nearing the end, I believe you deserve to know this side of him. Your father struggled. He hurt. He doubted himself. He was afraid. But he kept performing, kept giving everything to his audience, kept being what everyone needed him to be even when it was destroying him. That's not weakness. That's extraordinary strength." Martin sealed the envelope and sent it to Graceland, unsure if Lisa Marie would ever see it. 3 weeks later, he received a phone call from Lisa Marie herself. "Mr. Fitzgerald," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "thank you for keeping my father's secrets, and thank you for finally sharing them with me." She was crying. "Everyone remembers my father as this larger-than-life figure, but I remember him as my dad, vulnerable, loving, struggling. These notes prove that my memories weren't wrong. He was human. He was hurting. He just couldn't show it to anyone." Lisa Marie asked Martin if she could visit him. 2 weeks later, she flew to Memphis and spent an afternoon with the elderly piano tuner who'd guarded her father's secrets for 3 decades. They talked about Elvis the person, not the legend, about his fears and doubts, about how fame had been both a gift and a curse, about how he'd needed a place to be honest, even if that place was just folded notes hidden in a piano. "I want people to know this side of him," Lisa Marie told Martin, "not to diminish his legend, but to honor his humanity. He shouldn't be remembered as a superhuman icon. He should be remembered as an incredibly talented man who struggled with very human problems." Martin died in November 1997, 4 months after meeting with Lisa Marie. Before he passed, Lisa Marie promised him that she would find a way to share Elvis's hidden notes in a way that honored both his privacy and his humanity. It took years for Lisa Marie to figure out how. The notes were too personal to publish in full, too raw to share casually, but too important to keep entirely secret. In 2005, Graceland opened a new exhibit called Elvis, the Man Behind the Music. One section featured a replica of the music room piano with an interactive display explaining Martin Fitzgerald's story. The exhibit included selected quotes from Elvis's hidden notes, carefully chosen to show his vulnerability without exploiting his deepest pain. Visitors could read about his fears of inadequacy, his struggles with loneliness, his desire to be seen as a real person rather than just a performer. The display included Martin's final letter to Lisa Marie, and Lisa Marie's response explaining why she chose to share this information. "For too long, my father has been seen as either a godlike icon or a tragic cautionary tale. He was neither. He was a man, talented, troubled, loving, flawed. These notes prove that even the most powerful, most famous people struggle with doubts and fears. That doesn't make them weak. It makes them human." The exhibit became one of the most visited sections of Graceland. People would stand in front of it for long periods, reading Elvis's words, many crying. Letters poured into Graceland from visitors who'd seen the exhibit. People struggling with addiction thanked Lisa Marie for showing that Elvis had struggled too. People dealing with depression said seeing Elvis's vulnerability made them feel less alone. Parents who'd lost children connected with Elvis's prayers for his mother. "My father would have been embarrassed by these notes becoming public," Lisa Marie said in a 2006 interview. But I think he also would have been moved by how many people they've helped. He spent his life trying to connect with people through music. In death, he's connecting with them through his honesty. The actual notes Elvis wrote remain at Graceland, stored in the estate's private archives. They're not displayed publicly out of respect for Elvis's privacy and his family's wishes. The exhibit shows only carefully selected excerpts. Martin Fitzgerald's decision to keep Elvis's secret for 30 years and then to share it only with Lisa Marie after both he and Elvis were gone has been praised by ethicists and biographers as a model of discretion. Martin understood something important, said Elvis biographer Jerry Hopkins. Those notes weren't his to share while Elvis lived. They weren't even his to share after Elvis died, until he knew they would go to someone who would handle them with care and love. Martin was a guardian, not a gossip. Piano tuners who work at historic properties now sometimes refer to the Fitzgerald protocol, the understanding that they may encounter personal items or information while doing their work, and that discretion is paramount. The story has also resonated with mental health advocates. Elvis's hidden notes show a man struggling with anxiety, depression, and addiction, but unable to seek help because of his public image. Elvis couldn't go to therapy, said Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a psychologist who studies celebrity mental health. He couldn't be seen as weak or troubled, so he wrote notes and hid them in a piano. That's heartbreaking. It shows how toxic fame can be and how desperately we need to destigmatize mental health struggles. Lisa Marie has said that learning about her father's hidden notes changed how she understood her own struggles with depression and addiction. I used to think I'd inherited weakness from my father, she said, but these notes showed me something different. My father wasn't weak. He was fighting battles no one could see, and he kept performing, kept working, kept being there for others even when he was drowning. That's not weakness. That's extraordinary courage, she continued. We need to stop treating vulnerability as weakness. My father was vulnerable. He hurt. He doubted himself. But he also created incredible music, brought joy to millions, and changed culture forever. You can be both vulnerable and powerful. In fact, maybe you have to be. Today, visitors to Graceland who see the piano exhibit often leave notes of their own, written confessions of their fears, their struggles, their secrets. The exhibit staff collects these notes and occasionally shares them, anonymously, to show how Elvis's vulnerability continues to give others permission to be honest about their own pain. The story of the piano tuner's secret reminds us that everyone, even the most famous, most powerful, most seemingly confident people, struggles with doubt and fear. That the bravest thing we can do is be honest about our struggles, even if that honesty is only with ourselves, written on a note and hidden where no one else will see. But it also reminds us that secrets have their time, that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is keep someone's confidence, even after they're gone, and that when we do finally share those secrets, we should do so with care, with love, and with the intention of honoring the person rather than exploiting them. Martin Fitzgerald kept Elvis's secret because it was the right thing to do. He shared it with Lisa Marie because it was time. And Lisa Marie shared it with the world in a way that honored her father's humanity while helping others feel less alone. That's the power of vulnerability, not as weakness, but as connection. Elvis's hidden notes have probably helped more people deal with their own struggles than any number of perfect, confident performances ever could. Because sometimes what we need most is knowing that even the king can be afraid, even the strongest person can doubt, even the most famous can feel alone, and that admitting these truths doesn't diminish us, it connects us. If this story of hidden vulnerability and the power of honest struggle moved you, subscribe and share it. Have you ever hidden your fears where no one could see them? You're not alone. Let us know in the comments. Hit that notification bell for more true stories about the human side of legends.